Hi guys, it's Debbie with Debbie J's Crafting Corner. Today I'm going to be using the new Glimmer of the Month kit, Glimmer Edge Roses, from Spellbinders. You know, I love all things glimmer, so I'm actually a little in love with these roses. So we're going to try them out and see how they work. Now, the flowers that we got last month, the dies cut into the foil, so that meant that all of the edges were really nice and gilded, and I think this one does the same thing, especially just looking at it. I'm also going to use the foil that came in the kit. This is called Aura, and it is just gorgeous. This looks like it's kind of an iridescent gold, so I know on camera you really can't see exactly what it looks like, especially with the glare from the foil, but it is absolutely gorgeous. So I'm going to cut enough foil so that I can go ahead and just start foiling up some of these roses. I'm just going to start off with some white cardstock for that. So let me just double check the sizing. And this should be fine. And again, I'm using my quick cutter because it does a wonderful job of sizing this just right. Now I'm going to turn the quick cutter so that I can line this up and cut it let's see, I want this to move over a little bit. That way I can cut the other direction. So that's going to be just the right size for that rose. Put another one up here. And that should be right size for that one. And I'm thinking the third piece should be fine for some of the leaves and maybe that little blossom. So I'm just going to tape these down with some yellow tape and tape it to the cardstock. Actually, this was a used piece from probably last time around. It's not quite long enough to do all of them, but I can tape them together and add another piece down here on the end, and that should hold them in place, I think. We shall see. I'm just going to wrap it around the edge and go with that. And next, let's get my glimmer system out. It looks like it is pretty much ready. I'm going to go ahead and hit the timer, put my plates down with the plate side down, and then put a paper shim on top of that. And then once the timer says it's done, I can go ahead and run this through. Okay, so it is ready. And let's take a look and see what those look like. Okay, I can already tell I've got a little underfoiling on the leaf. And let's see what it looks like for one of the roses. Yeah, it looks like those got underfoiled. I'm going to try lining it back up again and see. I bet it's not going to work though. We'll see how it works. I have a feeling I will have shifted those. So I'm going to run it through again. This time I'm going to use the thin shim and see if that gives a little bit of a better impression. So this is putting down some additional pressure, so I'm thinking it should be enough. And then just to be on the safe side, I'm going to run it back. Only problem I have with running it back and forth is that sometimes it shifts in the middle. So let's take a look and see how these did. Okay. And looks like that is the right amount of pressure, and I lucked out and got the roses at least in the right spot. The leaves are a little bit off, but you know what? That is okay. If I color them up a little bit with some green, that should be fine. So those look kind of pretty, but I'm thinking I want to try these on some different color cardstocks. Now the cardstocks that I have are not, they're not fancy or anything. The ones I have are pretty much just Recollections cardstock, but I'm going to try that on some Recollections in some different colors and see how my roses turn out. The first cardstock I'm trying out is this dark burgundy color. I just basically am raiding my stash, my scrap bin to see what colors I have, and I'm just taping both of the dies for the flowers down onto the red cardstock so that I can see what it's going to look like. I also got a scrap of some of the green cardstock, again just a scrap from my stash, and I'm taping that one down again with the yellow tape. I let my glimmer machine heat up, and now I'm going to run that all through my Platinum 6, and then we'll take a look and see how those flowers and leaves turned out. Looks like the foiling turned out perfect on my little leaves. Now let's check the flowers. Well, the flowers turned out pretty good, except one of them looks like it shifted, and so that one's not really going to be usable. So let's go ahead and run some more through. I've got some green leaves and some red roses. So let's see how those turn out. Got everything taped in place, so hopefully there won't be any kind of issues. And I am not going to run it back through because that makes it shift for some reason on me. I also decided to do the other foilables in here, which this one is the little leaves. So those came out perfect. And this one is the little rosebud. And that one does have a little underfoiling, but I think that'll still be okay. There's some more of those leaves, and these turned out perfect. And then we've got the other bigger blossoms. And be careful, do not touch the plates. They are hot. And those look fantastic as well. So next I'm going to cut some of these out using the coordinating dies. Again, I'm going to tape them in place so that hopefully they don't shift. But you do not want to touch the foil with your tape because you could mess up the foiling. That looks lovely. So I am going to go ahead and cut the rest of these out. I did have it shifted a little bit and didn't quite cut perfect, but I think those are so pretty. I've got everything cut out, so now I'm going to add a little color. Starting off with some of the white pieces, just adding a little bit of flicking of a dark green marker, and then I'm going to go in with a lighter green. I absolutely love what adding a little bit of color does to all of these. Just makes, I don't know, makes them pop. Since I have the green markers out, I'm going to go ahead and add some green to my green cardstock and give them a little bit more depth as well. And there was one set of leaves that I didn't have die cut yet, so I'm coloring them on where they're already before cutting them out. So it doesn't matter if you color them before or after you cut, the result is still going to be fabulous. Next, I'll add some color to my little roses that I had cut out of white. Starting off with the green, like I said, I've already got it out, so I'm going ahead and doing the leaves that are on one of the blossoms and on that little rosebud. Now I'm moving on to those red roses. I'm basically adding some dark red to give a little bit of dimension to those, and the reason I'm going with the reds first is I don't want to mess up my white cardstock. Okay, I'm planning on doing some lighter colors on there, and I want them to turn out well, and flower coloring is not necessarily one of my strong suits yet. I haven't practiced enough. But when you're coloring on colored cardstock, it is a little bit more forgiving. I did notice though that there was that I was kind of discoloring some of my foil, which is actually perfectly fine. You can always just wipe that down. I used a little bit of alcohol I have in a spray bottle and put that on a paper towel and just wiped it off, and it was perfectly fine. Some I didn't even bother with that because you really couldn't tell. So to add the dimension, I'm adding a little line of dark red right below a lot of pieces on this rose because you basically want to have where the shadow is going to be, and that tends to be like right on that line. And if I do it on the wrong side of the line, yeah, who cares? It's not going to be a big deal. Nobody is going to notice, but it will add a little bit of depth to my flowers. The only downside is it does take some time, because wouldn't you just love to just color the whole thing as is? And you could definitely leave these without any color. They are pretty as they are, but I want that little bit of depth to be added too. And they're just, I can't get over how pretty they are. And depending on which cardstock that you're using, you may have to go over a couple of times, because I'm noticing that this cardstock, it's just Recollections from Michaels, and I've got a ton of it. But this cardstock is absorbing a lot of that color. It's getting absorbed into the fibers of the cardstock, so it tends to lighten a bit. So the initial dark color that I put down, which is one reason why I went so far dark, this one is my DR6. I've only got one color that's darker, and it looks more like a brownish red. It's so dark. But I want this to still have some of that red color in there. So I'm just making my way towards the center. I think that added just that little extra touch. This is just, I love my little roses. This may be one of my favorites so far. With the coloring all done, I'll just cut out the last of my flowers. And what I'm finally realizing is the way that you line these up, because it's supposed to cut right on the line and have that little gold border, is use this to cover up the foiled lines. If you lay it right exactly over it, it should cut pretty much perfect, but you have to have it lined up covering all of your pretty foil. And that is kind of counterintuitive, which is why the first couple of them that I did didn't really cut that well. Well, it's where they cut fine, it's just that it cut off part of the foiling that I didn't want to have cut off. So I'm figuring that this is going to work a little bit better. So let's see if I am right on this. So just looking at it, I can see a little bit of the gold here, so that means it's probably shifted down just a little bit further than it's supposed to be. Come on out. But it is still pretty much perfect on the line. So we've got our little stem that is all pretty gold, and then we've got that gold on the edges of all of the leaves, and it works perfectly on all of the stamps, on all of the flowers too. So that is the trick. Make sure that you line up your cutting die to overlap the foiled edge on your flowers, and that should give you a pretty decent cut every time. So now I need to figure out, what do I want to do with these? I mean, come on, they are so pretty. So let me start putting together something for a card, and then I can add those on the top. Apparently I stopped recording because this is the card that I created to start off with, and it happens to be one of my favorites. The other ones are basically all of the same design, just using different pattern papers and different card bases. For the pattern paper, I'm cutting those out using one of the fluted frames. I just love this die set, and it's the fluted frames rectangle. There were several of them that came out not too long ago, and I think they add a really nice finishing touch onto your card panels, although you could just cut it out with your paper trimmer. So I cut out 4 different panels from some coordinating cardstock that are in that card kit of the month, and now I'm going to mat each of those on some black cardstock. To do that, I'm just going to adhere each of the panels down to a scrap that I've got out of my scrap bin, and then just trim off the edges so it leaves that little 1/16 of an inch border around the outside. Next, I'm taking some of the roses and adding some foam tape to the back of them so that I can just add them to the lower left-hand corner of my card panel. I think this just looks so pretty, just having that little arrangement there. Next, I put together some card bases using some heavyweight cardstock and just centered each of the panels on the front of one of the card bases. Now all I need is some sentiments. So what I'm going to do, since I've got all of my glimmer stuff out, I'm going to use one of the sentiments that came out recently from Spellbinders. These are the Be Bold Glimmer sentiments, and I absolutely love this font. They're nice and big and bold. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to foil that up onto some black cardstock. These glimmer sentiments also come with a die to cut them out right on the line, so these are going to look so fabulous. For each card, I'm going to pop up the sentiment on a little bit of foam tape, and that's going to be, basically that's going to finish up these cards. Okay, I lied. You guys know that I could not just not put any bling on here. Not with those pretty iridescent sequins that came in the club kit of the month. I have to add those. So I'm just going to add a few little sequins to each of my cards, and that's going to finish things up for this video. Thank you guys for dropping in, and if you want to see any more videos where I'm making some more cards using Spellbinders products, be sure to check out one of these videos over here or the playlist. You guys have a wonderful day, and remember, if I can make it, you can too. See you next time.